Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to have my guest here today. He's someone that I've known now for about 8 years. I remember meeting him at a GLM event a long time ago after a presentation about hiring marketing directors, and that was the very first one-on-one conversation that we ever had. I wonder if he remembers it or not. Maybe I'll ask him about it. And from there, we've seen each other over the years at events, and he's someone that I genuinely respect in the industry, both in what he's accomplished with his law firm, but also then taking what he's done in his law firm and really sharing the playbook, having a level of candor that I don't think you see from many other people in this law firm success world. And now he's taken it to the next level. And over the last several years, he runs his event, the Seven Figure Attorney Summit, which you can find at sevenfigureattorney.com. Can't wait to talk with him about what's going on in his practice and what he sees in the industry. Craig Goldenfarb, so good to have you here.
Thanks, Charlie. It's always an honor to chat with you, buddy.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick it off with the question. What is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Sure, that's an easy one. And basically, it's anything about business or running a
Correct.
business. I mean, it's really funny. It's the same answer for doctors. It's the same answer for accountants. It's really true across the professional industries, which is they teach you the technical skills of how to do your job, but they teach you nothing about any human skills. And human skills includes the economics of running your business and then the people skills that it takes to run a successful business. So there's so much missing in any professional school setting, especially law school. And law school actually devalues human skills, I find, and it tries to take the humanity out of people. And that's what I found over again and again. And I think that's what, in fact, leads to people saying lawyers are jerks, because they are.
So what should lawyers be doing to combat that issue that maybe they've brought with them coming out of law school?
Well, I think part of it is just coming to terms with the fact that part of the intrinsic part of law school is to make you unemotional, make you not a feeling person. It's more of a logician and someone who's a strategian, which tends to take away your humanity, to be honest. It's like being a chess player. I'm a really good chess player, so to speak, now that I went to law school, and I can out-strategize anybody. But that doesn't work for your wife. It doesn't work for your kids. It also doesn't work for your staff, is that you can out-strategize anybody. I say often with my partner here at my law firm that we can get anybody to do anything. And it's true. We really can. But the problem is that when you have that skill set, it raises resentment in everybody that you convince to do something, whether it's your wife, your kids, or your staff.
You use an interesting, important word that I don't hear often, which is the word resentment. So you run a fairly large law firm and growing practice. How have you seen resentment occur within your practice, and how have you corrected that own behavior for yourself?
Well, the first is that, we work under a corporate structure called EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is based on a book called Traction. And part of what that talks about is accountability. And part of the accountability is actually having a mission statement and core values. So if you really have those things, if you have a mission statement and core values, and you weave them throughout your organization, then you only have people in your boat, on your boat, so to speak, that share your passion. And if you're all rowing in the same direction and you all share that passion, then you can get through things because you all have the same goal in life and you have the same goal at your company. So the fact that you're all rowing in the same direction really leads to a lack of resentment because you've got common ground. So when you have disagreements with people, whether it's over their product or their behavior, you can always start every conversation, which I do, which is, look, we have the same goal here, which is to provide excellent customer service or to have integrity or to have the gold standard. You start out with the core values. And once you establish that common ground in your mission, both in life and in your work, then you tend to be able to resolve things because you're all looking for the same goal. It's the same as being on a sports team. If your goal is to win, then when someone's not doing their job on a certain position in a sports team, you can say, look, our goal here is to win. We all have the same goal. So if you're unable to defend in that way, let me help you. Let's talk about why you're unable to defend that player or that play, because we all have the same goal, which is to win. And we all define winning in the same way. So
Mm.
if you're at a company and you all define winning in the same way, then no matter what is going on in your company, then you have that common ground, which is you all define winning in the same way. So you'll be able to resolve anything that people might be resentful about.
That was a really important point there, defining what winning looks like, having a common score. So within your firm, how do you actually break down the here's the big way that we win as a firm, and then how does that then become here are ways that individuals in their own positions win that stacks up to the score in favor of gold law?
Well, I'll tell you, our scoreboard, money is only one of the things on the scoreboard. You think of a
Mm-hmm.
scoreboard at a football game or at any sport, it's got several metrics on it. Not only, take a football game, for example, there's the time,
Mm-hmm.
there's the play clock, 30 seconds to get the play off, there's the score, there's the quarter, and then there's maybe one or two other things. So there's lots of different scores on your scoreboard. So in our firm, our core values are part of the scoreboard. In other words, integrity, gold standard, these different things that we all strive for. And only one of those things is financial success. So it's not just success is, did you treat that person with respect? Did you treat your coworker with respect? Did you treat the
Mm.
client with respect? That's a core value. So if that's scorable and measurable, which it really is, then you can share those core values and measure a lot of your things based in some part on core values. Now we have plenty of financial targets,
Yeah.
plenty of targets that are, how many demand letters did he get out? How many cases did he settle? What was your average fee per case? I run my whole law firm based on metrics, but we hire, fire, and discipline and review based on core values. We incentivize based on metrics. And those are two different ways of measuring your people,
Mm.
how you incentivize them and how you measure them. Two different things. One's based on money and one's based on cold, unemotional things. And one is based on character and rowing in the same direction and whether they're the right person for the job.
I appreciate that you mentioned both of those separate paths because it seems like a lot of times people talking to the legal profession really just want it to be a singular solution. Like the only thing that you need is core values to succeed, or the only thing that you need is KPIs, like direct metric numbers in order to succeed. How did you find that balance instead of just being sort of monomodal or monomodal in your measuring the firm?
Well, because one of the KPIs is actually turnover. So look, if you're making
Mm.
$1 trillion, but you have no stability in your life because someone's quitting every day or someone's yelling at another employee every day, that's going to lead to turnover. And my quality of life is in part based on the stability of my law firm. We have very low turnover. And to me, that's very peaceful. It's calming that we don't have to deal with crazy people resigning or us firing people for doing horrible things. So stability is actually a KPI. Turnover is measurable. Our payroll system, Paylocity, which is wonderful, has a turnover ratio and gives you a turnover percentage every year. So we measure that very carefully. It's a great payroll system we're going to be talking about at my seminar, and it helps us measure turnover. So that's actually a KPI. So firm culture and firm happiness and employee happiness leads to a measurable KPI, which is turnover. And a lack of turnover leads, at least to me, to some internal comfort and peace.
Did I see recently on social media that you have a big, audacious goal this year regarding turnover?
Yeah, 0%. That's crazy goal. We have 80 people, and our audacious goal is 0%. We call it unwanted turnover or unpreventable turnover. So
Hmm.
unwanted turnover is if basically we were about to fire you tomorrow anyway and you quit, that's okay. It was unwanted if we didn't want you gone, but we fire pretty quickly anyway. But the other one is if the employee's spouse moved to Illinois and they had to go with their spouse because their employee's spouse moved to Illinois,
That's
that's
fair.
unpreventable turnover. We couldn't do anything about it. So our goal is zero unpreventable or unwanted turnover.
So I'm curious that if you've already put a lot of work into preventing turnover overall, and now the big goal is 0% unpreventable or unwantable turnover, what are you doing different to close what many may already perceive as a small gap?
Well, I mean, part of it is, now that we've gotten to our size, we used to have HR and culture combined. We've
Hmm.
actually divided out those two departments. We have an HR department with about 3 or 4 people, and we have 3 people in our culture department. So it's a separate department. Then the way we define culture is employee happiness. So we have 3 people. Their sole job is not HR. It's employee culture and employee happiness. And there are so many different initiatives we have that are defined purely by employee culture and happiness, whether it's get-togethers, happy hours, bonus programs, incentive programs that are purely related to fun things. We have the Gold Law Games. My firm is Gold Law. That's a monthly contest that we do. Who picture the cutest pet, or whatever, with little rewards. I mean, it's almost like you hear about Google or some other company that just has fun stuff going on.
Yeah.
We always have something fun going on, and that really keeps people energized because it uses a different part of their brain. It's the creative part that I know you have yourself, and it really engages a different part of your brain than the day-long drudgery of the analytical part of your brain, which is what you're using most of the day here.
Mm-hmm. So you've got these initiatives going on. I think there are going to be some people who listen to this and go, okay, well, Craig, you have an 80-person firm. I have a 7-person firm. How do I translate some of this larger scale concept into a smaller firm?
It's so easy. And I started doing this when I had 3 employees. Look,
Awesome.
If you think about it, if you have 3 employees, if you go out once a month to happy hour, that's it. Once a month to happy hour, once every couple of weeks to happy hour. That's an easy one. Or you do something else as kind of team building. You go play darts, you go bowling, you go axe throwing. I mean, these are all things we've done. Whether you have 3 people or 80 people, it doesn't matter how many people, it's the same activity. And it just shows that you can get to know people on a personal level. I mean, one thing I've done, and I'm big now, I got a lot of people. I still go to lunch every Friday with an employee. I've been doing that for 25 years.
Wow.
Now it takes me a year and a half to get through all my 80 employees because it's once a week. But I still do that, and everybody's so scared. Their first time they are employed here, they're like, why does the boss want to go with me? I'm a receptionist. And so I have to, the first 10 minutes of the lunch, I have to stop them from being freaked out as to why the boss, am I hitting on them? Like, there's so many things that are going through their head as to why on earth I'm going to lunch with a receptionist. And it comes back to me in spades because another little hack that I use is after every lunch, I buy them something that came up at lunch. So if they're in, it's probably the same book I recommended to you, Charlie, on being the father of daughters, I think. If they're a parent of daughters, there's a great book I love called, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. If it's a dude and he's got daughters, that's the book he gets. If I know he's rebuilding his house, he gets a gift card to Home Depot. If the lady likes dogs, they get a Petco $50 gift card right after lunch. Again, it's a little hack I use that not only did I spend my time and money on them at lunch, but I listened to them. And I know they have 3 cats, and they're going to be able to buy some cat food at Petco. So I listen to them. I understand that they're a cat lover. And you'd be surprised at what comes out at lunch. Once they feel comfortable, it's easy to find them a gift.
Yeah. Well, and I think probably the secret here is, Craig, you actually listen to the person on the other side. You're inquisitive. You ask questions. I'm curious. You mentioned the logician side of being an attorney. Have you always had this other side, the emotional intelligence side, that allows you to invest in people and be curious about people, or was that a skill that you built?
I think I built it because coming out of law school, I was kind of a jerk and arrogant, and I was thinking I was the bomb. And I won my first trial, so of course I was the best human ever. And I realized that arrogance doesn't play well. And I grew up with a mother who was very smart and kind of arrogant, and I actually had a role model who didn't have a lot of friends, my mom, because she was so bright and very judgmental of people. And that was actually very formative to me in my youth, in that I saw my mom was the smartest woman I ever met, and she had no friends. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. It's a disconnect for a young boy to see a brilliant parent who is a failure emotionally. And that impacted me, that as I got older, I realized the smarter I got and the better I got, the more of an asshole I became. And that was not working for me. So I kind of was like, you know what? I don't want to turn into my mom. She died of cancer, and she died alone. And that was very powerful to me. She was only 65 years old when she died. And I was like, you know what? That was the smartest woman I ever met. So there's some disconnect here between being smart and being happy and successful. So that started me on a path to really starting to get outside of my own head, which is the scariest place to be, and actually to care about other people because I was impacted by a mother who sadly never came to that realization.
You know, the first time I heard you talk about that was actually at last year's Seven Figure Attorney Summit. And that brings to mind something that I think is really valuable in the way that you seem to approach the world, which is you don't just display honesty, but you display candor, which is to say, you're forthcoming. You're speaking a truth that is past just having to give the immediate answer in front of you. Again, is that the type of thing that, well, how did you build that willingness to exhibit candor rather than just plain honesty?
Let's see. So I started. I've always been a lifelong learner in that I
Mm-hmm.
read a lot, and I started to look inwards a lot when I took. There were some life courses I took. One of them happened to be called Landmark Education, which is a nationwide course, and I was about 30 or
Hmm.
31, and I started to have some problems at home. And then we got my wife and I got a life coach, and she said, I can't be your life coach until you take this course called Landmark Education. So my wife and I, being lifelong learners, were like, okay, whatever that is, we'll go ahead and take it. And that actually set us down a path of that course, which kind of has you look at your past and sees how your
Hmm.
past might limit you and how you're growing as a person and what you're limited by your by the family where you were raised. And we all form stories based on our parents and how we were raised. And we don't realize that they're affecting us every day, whether we're projecting on our spouse or projecting on our children or projecting on ourselves based
Hmm.
on the stories we told ourselves based on how we were raised. And this particular life course awakened me to a lot of those things that I had to come to terms with and deal with in growing. And as soon as I kind of, you never really free yourself of your youth. But as soon as
Hmm.
you come to terms and kind of become aware of your youth and how it impacts you, can become a lot more open to learning. And like you, Charlie, I read and I am always open to growth. So it really started when I was in my early 30s and taking a particular course that led me to a lot of self-help books and self-awareness and stuff that is challenging. But I've
Yeah.
come to a point now where I'm fairly self-aware. I mean, nobody who says they're self-aware is completely self-aware because nobody is.
Yeah.
It's impossible. But I would say that when people bring something up that I could work on, I love that. I
Hmm.
love it when I get feedback where they say, you could be better at this. And my wife's really good at that, at saying you could be better at this. So I've learned to, we tend to feel criticized as guys by our wives sometimes. But if you could try to figure out where that's from, put up a
Hmm.
protective shield and figure out where she's coming from, it actually makes your life a lot happier because you're not in that always criticized husband mode, which often males are in. So these are just some things I've learned over time to allow me to grow and be open-minded, and with that comes a lot of compassion and love for others.
So one of the things I latched on to really early on in this discussion that I knew I'd want to come back to was you mentioned just a few minutes in about the mission of the practice, but you said work and life, as in aligning the mission of work and life. Now, this is a point of curiosity that I know exists in the minds of a lot of firm owners when they're learning to lead their people, which is, oh, as a firm owner, the mission of my work and my life works so well together, but I don't know how to get alignment from my team when they see my mission as being, I'm going to make Craig a bunch of money, I guess. And I don't know how to line that up with my own life goals. So I'm curious if maybe your culture team or in onboarding training, if you try and help people line up the mission of the firm and the mission of their life, not necessarily one to one, but closer to it.
Sure. Our mission statement is that we hold accountable those who hurt others. Very
Mm.
short. And we worked on that for 6 months because we wanted to get buy-in from the whole firm. So as an owner, and if you read the book Traction, which talks about EOS, they say if it's just like the three business owners or two business owners that come up with a mission statement and tell everybody what it is, that's just
Hmm.
complete nonsense because that's the two business owners saying what their vision is and their mission statement and saying, hey, everybody, fall in line. Now, that's not how a company or an organic organism works. It's that you can create that, you have your mission, but you only bring people onto your boat who share that mission. So
Mm.
it's a good thing to do when you're small, because you can create who are the people on your boat. The challenging part is if you've got a boat with 20 people on it already, and now you determine your mission, then what's going to occur, and did occur with us, is you realize that a third of the people on your boat don't belong on your boat. And that's okay, because if you truly have defined what your mission is, then those 6 or 7 people need to be gone. And there's actually a scorecard in the EOS system to determine. It's actually a scorecard that says you list out your core values and you grade each person on whether they're representative of each of those core values. And if it's just a plus minus, and if you have someone with more than one minus, they need to go.
Mm.
And we did that, and actually only about 2 or 3 of our people needed to go.
Well,
That's
that
it.
is a big plus.
Yeah, it was huge. It just meant that we were unconsciously hiring people already that shared our mission statement and our core values, because we hired well. And there were a couple people who we just put through the gamut, and they just were not aligned with our core values.
So you say you hire well. I think it would be irresponsible of me as the host of this podcast, on behalf of the audience, to not immediately ask, what do you think you do on the hiring front that is reflected in you hiring well?
Well, we start with the time-honored principle of hire slow, fire quick. So our onboarding and hiring process is gruesome. It's very slow. So some of the levels involve me, but most do not.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the first interviews with HR and culture. So HR and culture, the first part of the interview is to determine whether they're a fit for our law firm. And those people know nothing about our product of legal services, meaning HR and culture, they're not asking questions about, do you know how to write a demand letter? They're asking about what drives you, what gets you up in the morning, what are your hobbies? Do you believe, here's our mission statement, core values. Could you tell me what these mean to you? We have a no whining policy. We have a no gossip policy. We tell them about these policies, and no drama policy. So we actually talk about that, and we see what the responses are. Because if you ask a person, we really don't like drama here, and they go, oh my God, I hate drama, then you know they're dramatic, and they just failed the test because they're dramatic. So that's a trick question we use, is we calmly say, we don't really like drama here. And if they spaz out about drama, well, they just failed the test because they're dramatic.
That's so good.
So that's one of our trick questions in interview number 1. So interview number 1 is actually a screening interview to see if they even fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Interviews 2, 3, and 4, yeah, I just said 2, 3, and 4, get more specific to their department, their knowledge, their skill sets. And then we do certain testing at different stages. We do either a Myers-Briggs or a DISC test on every candidate for every position. For the higher level positions, we do both, because all of our people are Myers-Briggs and DISC trained, all of our higher level people. So, and we've actually have a big document on the DISC profiles for various jobs in our office. So we know that a trial lawyer should be a DI. The DISC test is a personality test. Yeah. So a trial lawyer should be a DI. A person in marketing should be a high I, which is very social, very high EQ, because they're in marketing. So we actually have optimal DISC profiles and optimal Myers-Briggs results for every job in our organization. And that took a long time for us to be certified and learn and study what a Myers-Briggs test is, what a DISC test is. So we do different testing at different stages. We do a background check through LexisNexis between interview 3 and 4. We do the reference calls between interview 3 and 4. I mean, we've got everything laid out in a structure so that to maximize the chance that that person is going to stay. So the bottom line is hire slow, but have a procedure that's consistent and drawn out and thought out by some smart folks as to how many interviews you're going to have, who's going to be there, what testing you do, if any. You know, with our paralegals, we have some skills tests. You know, do they know how to file a complaint, which is a lawsuit in Florida? You know, we have skills tests once they get to interview 3 or 4 in the litigation department. So we can determine really if they go through all of our departments and to see if they're a fit. So it all sounds complicated, but you know what? If you're a pure business owner and you're looking for an ROI, a return on investment, going through that amount of time reduces turnover. Turnover is measurable. Turnover has an economic cost. So if you don't think it's worth your 7 hours of total time in vetting a candidate, even a receptionist, then you're making a mistake. Because that receptionist who peters out after 45 days is going to cost you a lot more than 7 hours in
Yeah.
retraining, in rehiring, and re-interviewing. So
It,
the answer is it takes work, but once you get that foundation established, then you're really good to go. And we hire well.
mm. So after you've hired team members, the onboarding process is certainly an issue for a lot of firms. Many firms, and a lot of the firms who will attend an event like Seven Figure Attorney, they will be concerned about, how do I onboard people when I feel like I'm already strapped for time? I don't necessarily have a ton of time to put into the training, etc. How did you maybe build an onboarding system, and what does it look like today?
Well, onboarding we define as the moment they sign the offer letter until a month after they're in. So we have a defined definition of onboarding. So in our system, once they sign the offer letter, there's a little button you click that means they're now an employee. Now they haven't started yet, but Paylocity, which is our software system, which we'll talk about at the seminar, that's when they call it onboarding. So that's the proximal time, is when they sign the offer letter. And then from that date, certain things occur, and some of it's automated. We got to get their W-9 filled out or whatever,
Sure.
whatever the things are. There's like 10 forms they got to fill out, and their I-9 and this and that. So part of it is automated. But then what we've now determined is that the first week at our law firm, the first week is getting them to know the law firm itself. So they go through a few hours of marketing training. No matter who they are, they need to know how we market. So they meet with the marketing team. And some of this is videos within SharePoint or within your Trello or your Tetra or whatever you use for your company. So a lot of it is videos. Some of them are videos by me. Welcome to because I'm not going to meet the receptionist.
Right.
So some of them are, welcome to my law firm. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm all about. Here's where I was raised. I have 2 girls, blah, blah, blah. So they get to know me. So, and yes, it's taken lots of time to create this onboarding. And when you have 3 people, it's a lot shorter. But our first entire week is get to know the law firm. And here's the policies of the law firm. Here's the HR handbook. Here's all our policies. So week 1 for us is law firm only. You're not touching a file. You're not doing anything. You're not even answering the phone. And weeks 2 through 4 are more specific to your job. Now, if you're a receptionist, it may only take week 2 to learn your job.
Sure.
If you're a paralegal, it's going to take weeks 2 through 4. So onboarding is about a month. And it really should be about a month before they touch anything important, because we don't want them to break anything. So even if you're an intake, you're going to listen to other intakers. You're going to be trained. You're going to watch videos. You're going to learn our FileVine software system. We've got 4 different software systems you got to use and learn. So you're really not touching a case or touching a file or touching a phone call until about a month in. Again, these are things that make it so that it's uniform in our company. And the lawyers listening to this are going to go, that's crazy. But if you step into any other industry that's good and well run, they're not on the customer floor. They're not selling a product. They're not doing a damn thing for their first month other than being onboarded. So I took that from other industries, which are run well. Why wouldn't that apply to a law firm? Why do we just let the paralegal train them for a day and then say, go do your work? Because that's what most law firms do. They say, hey, Mary, could you go train Katie, the new girl? And Mary doesn't have time to train Katie, the new girl. And she does a half-assed job. And then she says, okay, Katie, we're done. It's been 3 hours. Handle these 30 files. Do you think Katie's going to do a good job on those 30 files when she's had 3 hours of training? She doesn't even know anything. It's 3 hours of training. She doesn't know anything about your company. So that's the mistake that lawyers make, is that they don't have a system. They don't have anything established. Now, it doesn't have to be 4 weeks. If you have a small law firm with 3 people, at least have a process. I don't care if it's 1 day of training or 2 days, but start with a process. And as you grow, the process gets longer and longer and more detailed. You have more stuff to teach.
So, Craig, this is honestly one of the things I appreciate most about any appearance I've seen you do, any event that you've talked at, is what you just did there was translating this down from the big system that you have today down to hey, it's okay to do the first 1 to 5%. And the first 1 to 5% of what Craig has done may be 50% of what you need to have done today. And you can build on that. And that's one of the things I saw last year at the Seven Figure Attorney Summit. So I'd love to just preview for the audience, because I want people to show up at this. It's an event that is unlike any other. What are you talking about at the Seven Figure Attorney Summit this year?
Well, we did a survey last year after the summit, and we realized what people wanted me to dig deeper into. So one of them was setting up, so the first section this year is setting up your referral portfolio. So because a lot of the people who attend can't afford TV or billboards or anything like that, the biggest way, of course, to build your business is through relationships.
Yeah.
And that's how I built my business for the first 5 years. And today, even today, I go to 4 marketing lunches a week. And on Friday, I go with an employee. So even today, one of my best referral sources is people who I go to lunch with, and I go to repeat lunches with people once or twice a year. So my lunch calendar, my dance card is full. And so part of what I talk about is, it's the book, Never Eat Lunch Alone or Never Eat Alone.
Yes.
I've worked for 27 years of not eating lunch alone. 27 years. And I literally hold that as my number one reason for success. Is not TV, it's not billboards, it's not all the mass marketing I do and the things I do in the community. It's the lunches I've gotten for 27 years. And Bill Glass says it says herd, I guess. And it is my herd, HERD, like it's your group, it's your people. And I've got 40,000 people in my database now. And of relationships, no matter who it is, they go in that database. So when I send out my quarterly print newsletter that I copied from Bill 20 years ago, he was the first person to show me a newsletter. I'm sorry, Ben. I don't know why I keep saying Bill. That I copied from Ben 20 years ago. He sent out like a 3-page newsletter 20 years ago. Mine is now 16 pages in glossy, beautiful print, and it goes out to 40,000 people. Now, why 40,000? It's a hell of a lot of lunches. It's a lot of other people, but that's my herd. And the first time I heard the word herd was Ben Glass. So I took that to heart 20 years ago, and I've had 4 marketing lunches a week. So building your referral portfolio is topic 1. Topic 2 that I found that people just really need is how to pay your folks. And I mean lawyers and non-lawyers. I just call it compensating your people. So there's very different ways you compensate lawyers and non-lawyers, how you incentivize them with bonuses and incentive programs. I've developed such complex, but not that complex systems in incentivizing staff and lawyers, and how much I pay salaries and bonuses and when I pay and gifting and bonuses and all this stuff that's complicated, but I try to boil it down. So it's at least an hour and a half on compensation. I just call it compensation, how you pay your folks. And that's part 2. And the third is really involving marketing. And what I try to do is I boil it down to marketing for someone who doesn't have a lot of money. Because really the people that are there are probably people who maybe are earning 7 figures as gross revenue, $1 million. Maybe they're under that. Maybe they're slightly over that. But even if you're up to $3 to $5 million in gross revenue, you can still take some pointers from just some 10 quick marketing hacks that have a big ROI. So the third part is me giving some easy to do, inexpensive marketing hacks that nobody else other than me that I know of and other attendees of the seminar in the past may be doing. So those are the 3 topics this year. I change them up every year because we get feedback, and I like to add new content, and people come back because I do change the content.
Yeah, and it's an event that I highly recommend. To be fair, full disclosure, I'm turning as moderator this year, so I'll see folks there as well. But the reason I love doing that is just because you've put together a really incredible group of people who show up there each and every time, Craig. And I think folks should look forward to April 11th in Boston, and the URL is 7 spelled out, the word 7figureattorney.com. go ahead and check that out, get your ticket. And I saw that you all have these dinners that you're doing. You and Mike and Michelle are doing the evening before. So if those are not scooped up, I think people might not have a pulse if they're not grabbing those as well to sit
We
down with
added
you
those
all.
this year because what we realized is that some people are coming from one of the speakers more than the other. Like a lot of people are coming for me, but there may be some office administrators that are coming there specifically to talk to Michelle, who runs
Mm-hmm.
culture and used to run HR, and they're really interested in just talking to Michelle. So if we offered a separate dinner at a separate restaurant just with Michelle, those folks can join Michelle and get some Michelle time. And some people are coming, like there are a lot of marketing directors who come and they really want to talk to Mike, who's my chief marketing officer, and they'd
Mm-hmm.
rather spend a dinner with Mike than with me, and that's great. So we
Yeah.
thought we'd offer a separate dinner for Mike, and there are some people who are just there to hear me and what I'm speaking about, so we offered a separate dinner with me. So we thought we'd do like little breakouts in the form of a dinner, and it's some extra money, but you get kind of more of a close knit dinner with the person you may be there to speak with. So we thought we'd add that as a little bonus, a little caucus, so to speak, with maybe someone who you came to see.
That's fantastic. So everyone, that URL is sevenfigureattorney.com. Highly recommend it. Craig, I just have one more small question for you. But before we do that question, is there any other place that we should send people to connect with you, to learn from you, etc.?
Um, Probably just the seminar. I mean, I am a private coach, but my dance card is full. I only take on 6 clients, 6 law firms, and I'm at 6 right now. So I'm a private coach. I do that seminar, and I'm in some masterminds with a bunch of other lawyers. So there is another option actually, and I've got a lot of people who in the last 5 years have said, "Can we shadow you for a day?"
Mm,
And I'm like, you know what? You do want to shadow me for a day, but what you want to do is you want to bring 3 or 4 of your staff because you want to learn about FileVine, or you want to learn about Paylocity, or you want to
right.
learn about how we market. So what I do is I offer what we call Gold Law Day, and I've got a couple of dudes flying in from Boston next week actually, and it's 10 grand. It's pretty expensive, but what you get to do is you get to have a whole day, and we design your day based on who you want to meet with. So if you want your HR director to meet with Michelle for an hour and a half, great. If you want, and you'll get three sessions with me. I'll take you to dinner, and I'll talk to you about whatever subjects you need for about 3 hours. So you get me, and you get complete access to whichever of my staff you want for a whole day. So because I got so many offers, can we shadow you for a day? I can't devote the time
Yeah.
of all my staff to do that like every week. So we decided to
Right.
make it a structured event. It's a full day. You can fly down from wherever. You can bring whoever you want. And it is pricey. But if you think about it, if you have your top 4 people learn an entire day and you get to meet with me for 3 hours and pick my brain, then is it worth $10,000 in a return on investment? My thought is yes. I would have loved that opportunity when I was young to go to a firm and not just me shadow the business owner, but to bring 3 of my people who are going to ask questions that the business owner probably doesn't even know. If you ask me about my website, I have no idea. I don't even know what company hosts my website. But if you bring your website person, they can meet with my website person
There
and
we
get a
go.
ton of information. So that's why it's kind of a all-inclusive offer.
I love that. All right. Last little question for you, Craig. It's an easy one. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Great question. So I'm reading The Art of Happiness by Dalai Lama for the third
Mm,
time.
wow.
I, I was raised Jewish, but I found in the last 20 years I floated towards Buddhism and mindfulness. So
Mm,
I read some stuff in that regard. So I tend to read that book over and over again. So I'm actually reading The Art of Happiness.
love that.
Watching, I am watching Fargo, which is just a great show. Um,
Yeah.
love it. I think I'm going to rewatch Ted Lasso because I'm such a soccer fan. But those are the 2 things that I'm watching. I'm on Fargo. Just I love it to death. Reading, watching, and the third one was what?
Listening to.
I'm listening to a podcast by I think it's Michael Hyatt, who talks about just how to structure your life so that you are really focusing on the right things. He's really a thought leader in work-life balance and in how to really kind of run your life. And he's got a cool journal that he puts out on that is good to journal and the things that you have as goals. He's a goal-setting author and really empowering as an author. And I've listened to a couple of his podcasts. And Michael Hyatt, and he's not related to the hotel chain, but it is the same spelling, Hyatt. So that's what I'm listening to, is a podcast by Michael Hyatt.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for your insight, your wisdom, tips, tactics, and all the stuff that you've shared here. I can't wait to see you on April 11th in Boston. Again, everyone, the 7-Figure Attorney Summit at sevenfigureattorney.com. Craig, thank you so much for being on the show.
Charlie, it's always an honor. You're a good friend, and thanks for everything you do.
Absolutely. And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.